Thank you for watching, liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing right now. Tony Dyson. That's your name, Tony Dyson. You have TonyDyson.com. And that's where people can discover more about you and your background, correct?
Yep, that's my bio, and my company's Thesaurus.com.
Okay, and the funny thing, and we'll be sure to link that in the show notes so people can click over. I love at the top of the site, it says, the man who built R2-D2.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And I would imagine that has to be somewhat true.
Yeah.
Somewhat.
Well, who would be stupid enough to say a lie like that? I mean, come on.
There are a lot of people who post things that they shouldn't be posting on the internet, Tony.
There's a lot of people that shouldn't be doing what?
They're posting things on the internet that they shouldn't be posting.
Yeah, so they tell me. I was allowed to go there. Daddy and Mummy won't let me go to those sites.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
So you are an Emmy-nominated film special effects supervisor.
Correct.
What does that mean?
I've no idea. I copied it out of a text I saw behind a film. I thought it sounded really cool, so I copied it. What it means is, let me go back a few years, before special effects were really big, you know? And the director used to work with all the different special effects departments, yeah? So you got the pyrotechnics, but things go bang, and you got blue screens came on later on, of course, the model makers, the stunt people. It got really tiresome. So around about 1977, around about when Star Wars started, about the same period, just a bit earlier actually, they decided, wouldn't it be a cool idea if we had somebody that was in charge of all the special effects, and then that one person would talk to the director. So a special effects supervisor, because they decided not to call him a director. They called him a director to start with, but that got a little bit, naughty. The director got embarrassed about it, so they decided to call them supervisors. And that's what I do. I put together all the crews, I put together the model makers and the pyrotechnic people, and then I go and work with the director. Or did. Now I just work as a consultant. But that was basically the idea behind it. So one person speaking for all the different departments. Now, that was pretty good, wasn't it?
I would say so. I always wanted to know what a gaffer was. It was a word that I'd never heard of before.
I've never actually found out what a gaffer is. I know gaffer tape. That's that sort of silver tape. It's pretty good.
Maybe. You know? Yeah, I don't know. Well, my
you're going to see somebody that's dressed in silver and very sticky. And the corpse of the gaffer. I don't know.
There's an interesting visual for you.
Isn't it, though?
So it is, but it's.
You can make boats of gaffer tape. Gaffer tape's fantastic.
I may not sound it, and I'm definitely not 29, but I grew up in a time where special effects were still manifested physically. Are we past that point in history where special effects are tangible? Now where they're CGI, computer-generated imaging?
Yeah, it's a very good question, though. I mean, I like the question. Most people do think that. I mean, there's no question about it. The problem is, and this is twofold. One, it doesn't quite come off the same way. That's the truth of it. It doesn't matter how good CGI is, it never really comes the same way. It has a feel to it that some directors don't actually like. So, for that reason alone, you'll never get rid of physical special effects. On the second side of the coin, the actual cost is out this world. I mean, it's really amazing how expensive. I mean, it's plus 22,000 a second for any CGI.
Wow.
So, really, it's a big wow. So basically, coming home, that's one of the reasons why I'm doing real-time animation in Second Life, because it brings down the animation costs enormously. Oh, that's another story.
So how could you go into that a little further? You're using Second Life to build some things?
Yeah, I mean, last 3 years I've been experimenting. I first of all went in Second Life for educational side, when the universities in England, because I've always been involved with education, and they asked me to check it out for distant learning. That was 3 years ago. And I did do, and I liked what I saw, and I saw straight away a great potential for the real-time animation industry. We're making inexpensive animation. That's why I set a company up with Chantel. You'll find that on the website. And I can see an amazing market opening up there for that. So going back to your question again, to make sure we've actually covered it, physical special effects will never stop because of the costing and because directors do like to have the physical touch. So that will continue very happily alongside CGI. That's really the answer to that one.
So you're still very active in that, and you say you're doing consulting work. I know that you've also built robots, if I'm not mistaken, for like Sony or Toshiba.
Yep.
Working robots that we could pick up off the shelf, or?
No, these aren't product robots you can buy in the shops. No, these are specialized ones for commercials, for exhibitions, for theme parks. In the UK, I got a name as being the Robot Man because I made so many robots besides R2-D2. And that was my career for 20 years, really basically making robotics, anything that moved. Then I moved that into theme parks and museums. So I think Disney called it animatronics. So that was a very, very big part of my life. Even though I specialized in all kinds of special effects to start with, you know, because my reputation was so much with R2-D2, I went into the animatronic side. Later on, after doing the theme parks, I became a consultant for theme parks and also education for children. And I had a whole year talking to schools, kids at schools, telling them that, you know, animatronics or robotics was the next big thing to get into. And now I've moved into animation in Second Life, as I said, because I think that's the next big thing. So I'd like to get onto, you know, the beginning waves of something new, if I can do. Keeps me young, oh my, oh.
Well, and it sounds like you were right there, you know, when robotics were really kind of coming into popular culture. How did you get started? I mean, you know, everything that led up to, say, the creation of probably one of the most iconic film robots of, you know, all time. How did you, begin?
That's an amazing story, actually. Total accident.
It's a happy accident.
Nobody else would do it.
Really? Oh, wow. Wow.
True. When George Lucas came up with the idea of R2-D2 and 3CPO, that's the tall golden boy, basically people didn't want to make it because it was so complicated. And now I'm a total idiot, as you probably know by now, and we've only known each other a very short period. And I said yes. I mean, that's really how it came about. No, I used to make a rocking horse. You know, I decided that I wanted to make these rocking horses for all these very rich Americans coming to the UK. That was back in the old days. And I made the first one in wood, and that warped, and it didn't like the central heating at all. So I decided to make it in fiberglass, you know, the ones they make boats of, GP. And when I did that, it turned out it was a closed mold. That means basically you've got to somehow get into making the joints connect inside the body of the horse. And it's quite a difficult technique. And so the first one I made, I remember thinking, I always wanted to work in the film industry. You know, I went there when I was 18 on a motorbike, and they told me to, off. So I went and came off the bike, and a terrible story. But years later, I think only about 2 actually, I didn't give up. I mean, you can't give up. You've got to dream. And I was making the rocking horse at the same time dreaming about working in the film industry. And I did actually successfully contact a guy that was doing special effects called Brian Johnson, who had done a few things like Pink Panther and films like that. And he was working on a film called Space 1999, and he was just starting on the Alien, a film called Alien.
Yep.
And it was done at a small studio in the UK where they used to make Hammer horror films. And I rang him up, and I rang, and I got past the dragon that stopped you on the telephone, getting through. And I was very, very lucky. It was a rainy day, and this model maker picked up the phone by accident, and I started talking to him. And he said, you know, he'd been working at the studio for a couple of weeks, and he used to work in a model shop, and they needed lots of people to work on special effects. Now, he was the guy that actually told me that they were getting more into special effects, and it was a new industry. That was my break, by the way, because he said, you don't need a green card. You know, the union card to actually work on films.
Sure.
And I don't know if you know the story that you need a union card to actually work on a film, and you can't work on a film unless you've got one. So you've got this lovely catch-22 situation on your hands. And he said, well, you won't have that problem, because we're working outside of the studios, so we're okay. Anyway, a long story, he invited me down to the studios, this model maker, and I met Brian Johnson at the same time. And Brian said to me, I've got this great project coming up. Have you made anything? No, I never made models, you know, like kids do to make spacecrafts, and I never did that. I used to get a couple of toilet rolls, put them together and call it a ray gun.
Right.
My imagination was bigger than my talent, you know. So I thought, what can I show him? What can I... Oh, and I thought, oh my God, I got a rocking horse I'm making. And I'd made this rocking horse, I told you, in fiberglass. And I hadn't sprayed it because I didn't have a spray booth. I was making it in my garage, for God's sake. So I started painting it, I think it was on the Tuesday. And I painted by hand and tipped it. And all the paint ran down one leg, and then I would tip it the other way and it would run down the other leg. And that carried on for 4 days before it actually dried. And by the Saturday, it was actually dry enough to take with me. And I took this rocking horse called Mr. Pippin down to the studios, and Brian Johnson was the first person to buy my first rocking horse. He loved it so much. And really, that was it. He said, this is a closed mould, isn't it, Tony? I said, yes. He said, this is fantastic. I need something like this. And that's how I got to move forward, meet George Lucas, and get R2-D2.
Wow. If you know, that it's everybody's got an amazing story, but that is almost a kind of a, I guess, coming together of all these disparate parts to, well, have created a career that we can see.
No, and I think, wow, you know, that going down there and not getting in and trying again, I mean, really unbelievable how it came together that way.